Hello and welcome to Left Coast Live. It is Tuesday, December 3rd, 2024. I am your host, Dear McBusiness, America's white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. Joined as always by the one and only Stat Pat, stateless patriot of the Central Valley. We are California lefties talking to you about national politics, local politics, and today, generational politics with a very special guest, Gen Z Speaks podcast, who are really cool guys finding a foundation for themselves in the indie media space, and we're psyched to have them on. But before we do, Statbat, do you have any comments to make, or should we just bring the guys right in?
Nothing that really comes to mind at all. I hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving
Yeah,
weekend.
I know. It's like,
It's here and gone.
I know, right? I'm
Yeah,
so glad it's over. All right, well, let's bring them
of
in.
course,
This is
absolutely.
Matt and Ibrahim from the Gen Z Speaks podcast. Guys, welcome. I'm going to shut my door because my dogs are going nuts.
No, you're good. You're good. You guys might
Welcome.
hear some stuff going on in the background later, but we're
I like
good.
I like your guys' setup. We were watching the liberal versus conservative debate that you guys put out a few days ago, and it was an excellent debate. That liberal that you guys had on, like I haven't seen like a debate performance like that in a while. That guy really knew his stuff, and I love your guys' setup.
He's tuned in. Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank
yeah.
you, bro.
Oh yeah, of course.
So, why don't you give our viewers a little bit of just basic information about y'all selves? We know you're based in the Southern California area, and
Oh.
you've been doing this for what, like a year now, or
Yeah, we're based in LA, so I mean we've been on and off with the podcast, but the last 8 months now,
8 months.
it's just been consistent. So I have a warehouse business, I have a liquidation business, and so I was able to like have like a podcast studio first, essentially, right? Just dedicated one of the
Nice.
rooms to the podcast studio, and then
Excellent.
since we were able to do it in person, we're just like let's just lock in on this, and so we've been locked in doing 2 pods a week for the past like 8 months. And yeah, I mean, other than this though, I mean, I'm an entrepreneur, and then yeah, we're based in LA.
Yeah, we started
Nice.
the podcast like I think 4 years ago
Yeah.
initially, but it was through
Yep.
Zoom. And I mean, the Zoom podcast worked in some scenarios, but we just found ourselves a little disengaged,
Yeah.
right? Because it gets hard to do this remotely all the time. So we
Right.
figured the best way to get to know somebody is just face to face. So we decided to go all in on a studio,
Right.
do podcasts in
Yeah.
person, face to face, and that's worked out well. But I'm glad to be having this conversation with you. I'm not an entrepreneur like this guy. I hustle. I'm a stand up comedian.
oh, nice.
Yeah,
We have that in common.
my
I
background.
was in the stand-up scene for a couple years. Not serious. I would never call myself a comic, but I was in that world for a little bit, and it's awesome. It's a really fun place. In fact, I was in LA for 10 years,
Okay.
and the biggest thing that I miss about LA is the stand-up comedy and the random weird theater that you would get too, of just these freak show talents trying to get a name out for themselves, and whether it's down in the Venice Boardwalk or downtown or in West Hollywood. I mean, I was part of a theater season called the Fringe Fest. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's basically like oh, who is that? Is that you?
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, okay, it's all good.
come on, Jimmy.
Anyway, it's all like independent theater, and we was like, people who were aspiring actors, comics, and directors as well. So I miss that kind of grassroots entertainment culture that no one really knows about unless you're in LA. LA gets a bad rap, but it's like it is so culturally rich and diverse, and like where I'm living now in California, it's pretty white bread.
Yeah, it would be yeah, so both of you guys live in LA, so it's like a whole lot more convenient for you guys to just like show up at the same place to your podcast. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So like I'm about 6 hours north of all of you guys actually. Uh Dieter is about, yeah, like a 5 hour drive from me. He actually reached out to me because he took an interest in my content, and he showed me some of his early videos on his channel, and I found it to be like pretty much brilliant, and like we kind of both had the same I guess motivating force behind us that basically the gist of it is going over what makes conservatives tick and what makes what the left needs to do to combat it basically. and we've been doing this show for yeah. I think we started at the beginning of this year, and we've been slowly growing, and it's been real fruitful. Like the chemistry is there. It's been a really enjoyable experience, and we just hope to just keep on growing from here.
So,
Nice.
what do you think, guys, based on these conversations you've had? And I love your format. What is like now that you've been doing it for a few years, or these last 8 months? What do you think is like the one, two, or three biggest lessons that you've learned about the country and where we're at as a country right now, and how your maybe specifically how your generation feels about our country right now?
Yeah. You want to start?
It's
Or
a huge. I know it's a huge question, so have at
No,
it. Take a
Yeah.
big swing.
It's a
the
lot to
more
it.
we
Yeah.
talk to people, the more I think I draw similarities, whether they're conservative or liberal. I just think those are very deterring words, calling yourself a liberal or conservative.
Yeah.
Just in like what we've seen with people, everyone tends to be more moderate than the media makes people seem. And so it seems like a lot of people feel the same way. They don't like certain things, but it's just the media kind of drives people left or right. And majority of people aren't necessarily in those routes, right? They're right in the middle. They like some things that the left likes, and they like some things that the right likes, and that is totally okay. So I think that's what our platform really like reaches for, is that it's okay to like some things from the left, some things from the right, and have honest conversations where you don't have to attack people during a debate. Like I'm sure you guys witnessed, it was a very like respectful debate. And when do
Of
we
course.
see respectful conservatives and respectful liberals talking to each other? It rarely happens, right, on the media. And so we're just trying to like reach for that.
Yeah. That's
Well, I
actually.
want to hear what Ibrahim has to
Oh
say
yeah.
too,
Of
real
course.
quick.
Of course. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would agree with Matt. I think what we've talked to people from all sorts of different ideological perspectives. Some tend to be super conservative and some tend to be super liberal. But I think what unites them all together is a shared interest in progressing our country forward. And so I think whenever we have guests over, I think that's the intention that we start every podcast with is how do we move the country forward? It's not about my side wins or your side wins. It's about ideas. And so when
Yeah.
ideas win and when we're in a generation or a world of the better idea gets to be policy, I think the whole country can move forward collectively. So that's the premise that we base the podcast off of and that we have debates or conversations with people on.
So the use of freedom of speech to facilitate productive action in the best interest of
Oh.
the American public.
Exactly. That's the
Okay,
goal.
so
Straightforward.
yeah, you're gonna find out I do that a lot. Stat Pat, did you have something? Sorry to interrupt you a second ago.
Yeah. It is a noble, valiant effort. Honestly, trying to like meet people where they're at. Honestly, that's something I've strived to do for the longest time because it's like n- conservatives in general, however you define it, they're not a monolith. You're going to have different modes of thought, different like different walks of life that think differently but still consider themselves conservative. Same thing goes for liberals as well. And like I even have I most of my shorts that I clip up from the streams that we do, lots of engagement from right wingers and whatnot. But these are the kind of right wingers that are, I guess you can consider them too far gone. They've drunk the Kool Aid. They're just like go red team go, and there's a lot of people out there that are definitely like it's so much harder to reach them. And when it comes to meeting people where they're at, for me, you can only go so far with that and still like be disconnected from where power lies because the both of the parties, the guest that you had on the liberal was talking about how when it comes to Congress and the Senate, they pass the majority of what they pass favors corporations. The people get left behind, the things that the people want and whatnot. And one of the hardest things to reconcile, and especially since the advent of Bernie Sanders, is just how big of an influence big money and corporations have on the electoral process, whereas like the rest of us, like normal people who actually like just want to see some change in this country, are just ultimately left behind.
So, in terms of The difference, but okay. So one thing I wanted to make sure you guys knew about your guests. I don't know if my camera's okay. One thing I want to make sure you guys knew about your guests, because it was a cool conversation. It went really well. Obviously, you have good taste in people. You also ran into a guy in that conservative who was not MAGA, right? He was right leaning, and he also had kind of a fun personality. He's a comedian. How many comedians do you know that are conservative? I mean, come on, let's get real. We've talked about that on this channel. Why aren't conservatives more artistic? Why aren't they more creative? Why don't they participate more in entertainment culture? I mean, there's a reason, and it's because I'm actually going to hold on to that. I'm going to hold on to that because I wanted to hear about you guys. I want to hear more from you.
Well,
But go ahead. Yeah.
I think so. I'm in LA and I talk to a lot of comedians, and there's a pretty handful of them that are conservative. It's just I don't think they feel comfortable enough expressing how they feel, and
Sure.
partly because of the culture politically that we've created. And it goes on both sides. If you notice, in the Democratic Party, if you come out as a Bernie supporter, if you come out as extremely progressive, the establishment will go after you. You saw
Yes.
that in the
Yes.
primary process, right? Like where a lot of candidates that were very progressive, like Jamal Bowman, right? APAC just destroyed because
Yep.
he was very progressive and he took certain values. So it goes on both sides, but I will tell you, like, I will disagree a little bit. I do think conservatives can be artistic. It's just I feel like the culture in Hollywood is very liberal and progressive, and so people feel a little out of place if they really express how they politically feel. That's
Right.
what I noticed, at least in my experience. But yeah,
Sure.
That
And go ahead, Steph.
well, and that's another thing I've noticed as well is like the thing is like it or not, like there's not like I mentioned before, there's not one label that applies to everybody across the board. Like if you do polls of the country and whatnot, like when it comes to like what you believe is liberal or what you believe is conservative, everybody's opinion of what those labels mean varies drastically, and so
Right. That's why I want
like
to ask this huge question right now, real quick.
go ahead.
These guys, what
Yeah.
is the difference to you guys? What is the difference between liberal and progressive?
I would say when I think of, I think they're very close, but in the modern era, like 2024 definitions,
Right. Today. Yeah.
today, I think a liberal is Chuck Schumer and a progressive is Bernie Sanders. Honestly,
There you
those
go.
are two definitions for me. So
Yeah.
historically, it used to be different, right? But as of 2024, liberal Hillary Clinton and progressive is Bernie Sanders. Those are the two wings for me, at least. So
Yeah,
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. Liberal, just in terms of definitions, I think it's perceived as crazy left, and progressive, I think, is perceived as like moving forward.
well, opposite,
Wow.
actually. Opposite.
Yeah.
Right?
No, invert those.
Interesting. That's
No,
how you
that's-
see it.
yeah.
Oh, okay, interesting.
What, you think the liberals are crazy or not? Interesting.
That's what that's I guess that's what I'm saying.
For me, it's obviously the progressives seem.
I don't see Bernie Sanders. The more people I talk to, actually, the less people I hear that say Bernie Sanders is crazy.
I agree with you. Yeah.
yeah. So
That's why
yeah, that's the thing. Like all these labels and whatnot become so I guess bastardized for lack of a better term when it comes to just because of media perceptions and narratives that are pushed about these labels and whatnot. It's like wow. I mean, like you ask like the far right conservatives and whatnot, like, and their only like mode of thought is like as long as it triggers those crazy
The libs.
libtards or whatever. It's like
Right.
It's
So, but this
like,
is important, though. We need to get these words are so big, and they're not going away. Liberal,
Yeah.
conservative will always define our politics. The problem I think you guys are running into
over the
now
window.
with where you're at in your life and politics being forced upon you by our society. Like politics were not like this when I was growing up. They were intense, but they were different because they were post Cold War.
And
but
pre-internet.
now it's being forced upon you that certain things are normal,
Yeah.
and they're not. For example, like Israel, Hamas. Let's go there real quick. I mean, that is clearly a genocide.
Yes.
That is a genocide. We all agree that is the definition of a genocide. The ICC agrees with us. Most developed nations observing what's going on in Gaza right now is genocide.
Absolutely.
Right? That is not a controversial opinion. That is actually a popular opinion outside the walls of the United States media environment that you were talking about, right? So because of that one issue, because you decided, and I don't know what your education levels are, but you are obviously self-educated, you went in and did the research and got through the Zionist stranglehold that is our modern media, that has been feeding everyone that this is a two sides conflict,
Broke through
that
the
this
filter.
is not David versus Goliath, that this is actually a fair contest, and that Israel defending itself means going and committing all these atrocities. And then you found out why that's happening. AIPAC.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
How many people in Gen Z are doing what you're doing? Please tell me this is contagious.
I think a lot of people in my generation are very concerned, and certainly they agree that what's happening in Israel is a genocide. I think there is a handful of section in Gen Z, though, that fall victim to the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, too, guilt shaming them into believing in everything that they have to stand for. You see this at
Yeah.
both sides. It's either you believe in everything or you're not with us. So, like, if you look at Candace Owens, right, I disagree with her on a lot of issues, but look at this issue on Israel. Like,
She's come out.
I'll
Yeah.
give her credit. She's come out and spoken against it, but look at what's happening to her. Ben Shapiro fired her from the Daily Caller, right? That's his company. And
Yep. Daily
saw her
Wire.
repercussions. And so this is happening on both sides. Like you said, I mean, you're right. It's the control over the media and the two-party system.
Correct.
Thomas Massey, I don't know if you saw this, a Republican, right? He was telling Tucker Carlson that every Republican in Congress has an AIPAC guy. And I'm sure every Democrat.
Yeah. Oh,
Yes.
I forgot
Multiple.
about that.
Usually
Yeah.
more than one. Usually more than one. Yeah.
This is a democracy which is being controlled by literally a small country that we give hundreds of billions of dollars to, which is ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that. It's such a disgusting aspect of our system, and that's why I'm just so happy that post election, now that we're going to have to fucking deal with a whole another 4 years of Trump, unfortunately. Bernie's going gloves off and whatnot. He's actually going back to the message and whatnot, because if you guys were paying attention during the whole Kamala Harris campaign, there really were no progressive voices that were campaigning with her.
Okay, hold on, because I want their views to drive.
Of course.
So
of course.
let me present this question to you guys now that you've had plenty of time to think about it. But why did Kamala lose this election? 1, 2, 3 reasons. I don't care. But just having thought about it, what do you think?
No, we've talked about this quite a bit on the podcast. One of the there's a few main reasons, right? But one, she didn't appeal to people. She just wasn't a personable person. She didn't go on podcasts. She refused to go on long form. And I think that's where we've realized that's when you see who a real person is, right? When they're able to talk for long periods of time in the skin that they are, right? Not when somebody else is behind them feeding them information, which happens on both parties. That's just reality. That's just politics.
Of course.
But one thing I personally don't like Kamala and I don't like Trump. I don't like either party, either of the candidates. But one thing I give to Trump is at least he's in his own skin, regardless of his environment, right?
Yes.
He wasn't able to combat that. She focused too much on female reproductive rights, right? Not wrong with that, but it was an overabundance of that, right? Rather than 80% of Americans believe that the economy is an issue, the biggest issue. And she didn't talk about it. It wasn't really in our faces like Trump was making it, right?
Yeah.
I honestly agree. The going on the podcast, we talked about that. I mean, I did a PSA directly to the camera, begging the Harris campaign to go on Joe Rogan, multiple times on the podcast. Not that the campaign was listening to our podcast, but nonetheless, I think it would have helped her.
Right.
That's one point. The second point I do think is, I've been thinking about this question a lot, and I have a macro approach and a micro. So macro lens, right? I think to beat Trump this cycle would have been hard, no matter who the candidate was. Truly, that's what I think. Because if you look at his trajectory, right, the stuff that he overcame, for example, the assassination attempt. I mean, that I think affected people more than the media portrays it to be. This is a living president that, you have to give him some credit. Like what he did on that debate stage, narcissistic thing to do, but it got him support. But to your question directly, I think the Harris campaign flip flopped on so many things. If you look at her record, right, she was a progressive that supported Medicare for all, I think 6 years ago.
Hmm.
When she runs for president, she disregards that entire policy. She flip flops on it completely. She,
Yeah.
what else did she do? She also, when asked on The View about the question, what would you do differently if you were president?
Right.
Said, not a thing comes to mind. Okay, well then why should we vote for you? Like what?
Right.
Why don't we just run Biden instead of you? Like what's the difference?
Did you guys watch that Pod Save America episode with the Harris team?
No,
No.
what's
All right, I
You
might do a
get-
full. I might do a full reaction to that stat Pat, because
yeah.
I need to destroy them. They need to die.
Yeah,
politically, of course.
you're
I mean,
you're not the only
like their
one that looked at
careers.
them.
Their
Of
careers
course.
need to be over. They need to never work in
No,
Democratic
of
Party
course.
politics ever
You're
again.
like, fortunately, you're not the only one that's pissed off about them. Fucking Vosh, Secular Talk, Humanist Report, Majority Report, everyone just dragged them. Just like, yeah, we actually reacted to it, parts of it, our last stream, and it was just so goddamn frustrating. It's like,
Yeah, so-
these people don't even like learn, and to Ibrahim's point, um, we've been saying, like, everybody's been saying this, but like from the get go, when we saw that clip of The View, when she went on The View and basically said that there'd be nothing different that she'd do besides from Joe Biden, it's like, then why are you even in the race? Why change out Biden at all? You're supposed to like represent something different from him, because like his favorability numbers were in the toilet. That debate was a fucking train wreck. Like, you need to differentiate yourself. I get you're the vice president and like you don't want to like throw him under the bus and everything, but at least be more bold than him. But no, all she did was just try to court the Republican vote, and she ended up getting less Republican votes than Joe Biden anyway. So there's just a slew of frustration across the board, and I'm glad you guys saw that View clip and came to the same conclusion, because
also, can I add the whole campaigning with Liz Cheney? I did
Yes!
Yes.
understand
There
that.
we go.
Damn it,
Thank
dude.
you.
What?
Ah,
What are you doing?
Yes.
Everybody hates Liz Cheney. I hate Dick
Yeah.
Cheney. This whole movie
And she-
made about this guy. It's like
And-
everybody hates the Cheneys.
apparently
They're trying to
MSNBC is doubling down on the Liz Cheney campaigning and whatnot. It's just like, are you kidding me,
Let
dude?
it go for one.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not going to learn their lesson today. Is the problem? This is going to be a long process to get new leadership.
Very
in the
long
DNC,
process.
But we need generational change in the DNC party, in the Democratic Party,
The
along
whole
generational
establishment,
lines.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you guys. Okay, so I wanted to respond just a little bit back. So, in other ways, yes, you got the personality, the people right in terms of the liberal versus progressive, but in terms of application, I would suggest that liberal means incrementalism and progressive means big, bold change now, yesterday.
That's how I
Like
would
the
find
model president for us is FDR, and actually, I found an amazing video on the history of U.S. presidents, like in like a personality way. It evaluates them, and it doesn't deal with any of the boring ones, only the interesting ones. So I'll send that to you guys after we're done streaming. But that's a huge difference between liberal and progressive. And it's really, when I say liberal nowadays, it's basically neoliberal. So
Yes.
the biggest life experience that I think I had that none of you had was being mature enough to appreciate what was going on during W's administration, the W years. That I lived through. I was in college. I was in late high school, 9/11. I was a senior in high school. So I got to actually enjoy what's known as America's long weekend, which was the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 to September 11th, 2001. That was the only period in our country's history when we've ever really had like peace and still been at the top of our game, economically speaking. So to see the Cheney family still around after all these years and now trying to be a symbol of unity. See, that's one thing that maybe we should get to is like the politics of love, kindness, and unity, right? Do you guys, because we just got let me ask you this. Let me ask it to you this way. Did you notice the glaring contradiction between the slogan, when we fight, we win, and Kamala's foundational premise, based on her personality, the politics of joy? Right? So are we supposed to be joyous about fighting? How the hell are we supposed to resolve that conflict? When we fight, we win. So wait, so we're fighting? Do we get to be joyous after we win? We're going to be joyous along the way? Like, you understand? There's no consistency.
Of course.
There's no specificity. There's no decisiveness in the messaging. It's trying to please everybody, and that is a cultural flaw for the Democratic Party. It's trying to be everything to everyone instead of trying to be what it should be, which is FDR, big time, huge waves of change. When we put our mind to it and we actually make a concerted effort into things, you guys have done your history, America steps up, but it's not without the facilitation of the federal government.
Yeah. It's almost, I mean, that statement's almost a contradiction in my opinion. I don't think the left and the right, see, I think this is a huge problem. It's like left versus right. And that's how it's perceived. That's how people talk about it. And
well, now I'm talking, just to be clear, now I'm talking about an internal conflict between liberals and progressives. That's what I'm trying to allude to there.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Okay, same concept. It's the same concept all around here. I just, in my opinion, I know it's an impossible thing, and maybe that's what Gen Z is about, trying to make impossible things work. But when we like say, hey, it's them versus us, or like there's a fight between us, people will naturally be angry. They naturally want, their side to win. And I just don't think it should be that way. I think we should be able to look at every angle and, realistically say, hey, this is happening here. This is happening there. What is right? It's not just because my side is doing this.
Okay, so let me just tell you what might be problematic about that.
Please.
And as your network expands with your channel and you get to know people from various different parts of the country, okay? There is a subtext to what you're saying, which is that it's the speech that's most important, right? That the freedom of speech is the most important amendment. It's the most important right that we have. It leads to productive action. Well, I'm telling you that conservatives on the other side who are using their freedom of speech to communicate their views, they're okay with the conclusion of agree to disagree, because conservatism wins when it's agree to disagree. Their job, their rhetorical position is to defend the status quo as best as they can. And my argument isn't so much how do we fight them, it's who should be fighting them. I think liberals who are running the party right now, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, you know the names, they need to get out of the way of people who are more in line with Bernie's approach of anti-corporate, anti-establishment, and what's another one, Stat Pat? Fill in the third for me.
Oh,
anti-special interests.
Yeah, resistant to the influence of lobbyist money in general.
So I guess what I'm saying there, Matt, is just that you said at the beginning, and that's why I asked you, that the speech is there to yield productive change, right? Positive change in the best interest of the American public. And I'm telling you, having grown up in a conservative household, knowing every size, color, shape conservative there is out there, that they love it when you reach the point in the conversation where you both have felt heard and you're like, well, I guess we'll agree to disagree. That's a conservative win for them, because then nothing changes.
No.
And the definition of...
Totally understand. I guess I'm saying the rhetoric needs to change. It just shouldn't be us versus them. That's the whole
Yeah,
point.
It shouldn't be a binary. It should not be a binary.
A forward conversation. That's all it should be. A forward conversation, rather. Why is my side better than your side?
But there aren't two sides. There are like five sides.
Okay, so here's the thing. Well,
right? There's progressives. Right. Well, hold on. Let me do this real quick for him. But like, there's progressives, there's liberals, there's Trumplicans, there's anti-Trump Republicans, there's independents. There's at least five sides trying to all figure shit out.
It's just us versus them and them and them and them. You get
what I'm
saying?
So
the conversation shouldn't be that way, in my opinion.
Agreed, and like this is why I actually respect what you guys do. Is like you just try to like bring everybody together and actually talk out, like iron out the differences, and actually see like we all want a better future. Like that's ultimately what it comes down to.
Right.
Uh, so what we focus on is like power structures, and how influence of power causes these divisions. Like obviously there's divisions. Like it's pretty apparent right now, and these groups and whatnot. Like of course there's two sides of the Republican Party. There's the anti-Trump Republicans, and then of course there's the MAGA extremists and whatnot. And on the Democratic Party side, there's the neoliberal status quo Democrats that hold the party back and don't actually fight. Not even convinced they even want to win, and then there's the progressives, the side that actually wants to I guess, propel forward actual bold change that delivers for the working class of Americans. And of course, there's independents I assume all of us are, who are just so fucking tired with both parties because they just don't represent any of us honestly. But what we know this because we follow politics really really closely. We see that in the Republican Party, if they're able, they see regardless of who they are, like MAGA or not MAGA, they see anybody to the left of them, whether it's the Democratic Party or people left of the Democratic Party, they see them all as the same. They treat them like a monolith. Like they're all Marxists, they're all communists, they're all socialists. Not all of them think that way, but a good majority of them do. And that propaganda lands to them because it makes people scared. If you get people controlled by fear, you'll have them voting for you basically. So the issue basically comes down to it combating that language, combating that rhetoric in a way to where it doesn't like you shouldn't be scared to defend yourself as a left wing person. Basically, it's just like, yeah, I'm left wing. This is what I believe, and then you come to find out you actually have a whole lot more in common with conservative voters to begin with. But they just vote the Republican Party out of fear in the propaganda that they're fed about how radical the left is. When we're not radical, none of us are hold any radical positions for crying out loud.
But do
Going
you
back
know? Go ahead, Abram.
to say, I think you brought up an interesting question about this concept of joy that Kamala Harris ran on.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
I think it stemmed from basically, I think her campaign was out of touch with what's actually happening on the ground because
Yeah.
when folks are paying more for gas and food,
Yeah.
and, people are not doing well economically. People on the top are doing amazing, but
Yeah.
middle class families are not doing so great. So when you tell people to have joy in their lives and smile and have I don't
It's
know,
insulting.
No,
It's
you're
insulting.
right. It
something.
is.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
What joy are you talking about? Like what is that even?
Fuck you, bitch. You don't know what I'm going through.
Exactly. I think that's
Yeah.
what half the country said. Most of the country. That's what
Yeah, that if they weren't saying it, they were thinking it.
they,
It's
exactly.
not about what Americans are saying. It's about what they're
It's-
thinking.
This
And you know what? Like it's funny. I had this old friend of mine who is very enlightened, and I learned a lot about progressivism from her. She saw it coming a mile away. She went to this party, and it was like liberals and progressives, and she had 2 or 3 progressive girlfriends with her, and the rest everybody was liberal. She was like, so when her friends looks to her after the results start coming in. So when do you want to leave? They knew it. They knew it was coming, man. They knew it was
Yeah.
coming, and it's because there's 3 Okay, so I just want to wrap this. I'm doing a video on this, but there are 3 contextual reasons and 3 kind of controllable reasons why Kamala lost, in my opinion. So the first contextual reason: America's still a racist and sexist culture and society. It just is. Anybody who says otherwise, you're not paying attention. We still have a predisposition to want men in positions of leadership, and very often white men.
It just comes from fear. It comes from fear of the unknown. It comes from fear of the other, basically. And
Yeah.
what
Oh,
it
that's
stems from.
that's what I wanted to actually. I'm not going to do my list. Maybe I'll bring it back up. But the concept that you guys were talking about, because you know about this, and I'm trying to popularize this term, and you're free to use it as long as you hook me up with some credit. It's scapegoat politics. I did a video called Who Are MAGA? Confederate Flag Wavers. Racism is Blame. This has been going on for 140 years. Your life doesn't suck because the federal government and the private sector aren't delivering a society of equal opportunity. Your life sucks because of those people that are different from you, the other, the blacks and browns and immigrants and Muslims and in some cases Jews. Like it's, I mean, it goes all the way around. And so that's, by the way, that's my value proposition, is that I'm the insider that knows the people that made that happen. Like the Southern strategy that you might have heard about under Nixon that started and was enacted really under Reagan. Like I knew that I didn't know them when I was a kid, but I went sailing with their kids and shit like that. Like I got the inside track on that sociopathy, and believe me, it's sociopathic. So, Matt, to your point, I don't have an issue with conservative people who are open-minded. Like the guy that you had on your interview, totally nice guy, and he was right-leaning. He's not MAGA. Like he doesn't worship at the altar of Trump or the unregulated free market. He doesn't believe in something that you guys might not be as aware of how prolific this is in people who are over 40, Reagan's assertion that government is the problem. The reason why a lot of these conservatives will never vote Democrat is because Democratic Party stands for effective government. It's what it's supposed to aspire to. It doesn't live up to it. And, there's a lot of reasons why. But that's that one fundamental belief that government is here to fuck you, that absolutely stifles the kind of conversations that you want to have.
I think one other thing I forgot to mention, thinking about Kamala Harris's campaign, is if you look at U.S. history, the leaders that have been the most successful are those that stand for what they believe in and fight for those causes unapologetically. FDR, a prime example of this. If you look at Trump on the right, I will give him some credit. He really believes that a wall will fix the immigration issue, even though he didn't do much effort in his 4 years in office, but he's kept repeating the same talking points. He hasn't really backtracked on anything. And he's unapologetically just been himself and advocated for his policies. And if you look at Kamala, she has not unapologetically fought for the stuff that she really believes in. Because I do think she's a very progressive person in her heart. I just think she wanted to win the election more than she believed in the progressive values. And I think that actually contributed to her losing, because had she been an agent of change, had she actually said publicly, you know what, I'm going to be different than Biden. I don't agree with what Biden is doing on Israel and Gaza, because clearly Kamala understands that what Joseph R. Biden has been doing, I don't know why I said his full name there, but what this man has been doing, right, on Israel and Gaza is just ridiculous. So I think you have to be bold, and you have to be unapologetically bold, which the conservatives have done for a long time, and they are bringing those fruits, I think.
But Kamala Harris never had that in her. That's just not who she is. She goes like this. Which way's the wind blowing? Oh, okay, I'm going to go that way. Like, I mean, she went back on Medicare for all. She laughed at legalizing weed, even though any politician in California was like, even conservatives were like, yeah, let's get weed going. Tax revenue. Hell yeah. Like, what's wrong with that? People don't get stoned and beat their kids. We're enlightened out here. Like, I mean, you know what I mean? So Kamala Harris just wasn't that woman. And to be honest with you, you tell me, Stat Pat, was there anyone in that field back in 2020 that really could have been a great, solid VP pick? None that was in the field. It would have had to been like someone that we don't even know about, like a Cheney style pick.
No, I mean, like, He
needed a stronger VP, guys. You understand that, right? Like that was a huge fuck up to go with Kamala for VP. Like it needed to be someone that was capable of running the country, because there was a very strong likelihood of him at least having dementia, but maybe even dying. And she wasn't that woman.
That would have been cool.
That would have been amazing. We all wanted Bernie.
Like he was the last one in the race, like next to Biden and whatnot. And like this is another thing too that we have actually discussed about on the stream as well. A big reason why, and your guys' points so far about Kamala Harris losing, we're basically in full agreement. Like we've been like just hammering away at this for like if you watch any of our streams or my shorts, like it's just it's anger inducing, honestly. But a big difference between Joe Biden's campaign and Kamala Harris's campaign is it was the 2020 primary. They were going against Trump. There are a lot of people in the field. Bernie was the final, like the last person in the race besides Biden. And so Joe Biden actually kept a lot of Bernie's progressive coalition intact. He got he got Biden to actually embrace a lot of his ideas and proposals and whatnot. That at the time, of course, it was in the middle of the pandemic and everything, but Bernie campaigned his ass off for him. AOC, Omar, and whatnot were able to get a whole lot more new voters registered and whatnot because they're like all in for Biden. That was basically non-existent for Kamala Harris's campaign. And
Yeah.
so
Okay.
it's like,
So the big number that I can't believe it took us 40 minutes to get here. It's my fault. The big number that you should be on the lookout in any commentary on this election is 7 million, because that's how much less votes Kamala got this year than Biden got 4 years ago. All right.
we're
Now-
convinced that was basically that
The
missing
Bernie coalition. That was
like,
the Bernie coalition. That was the people that got pissed off that she did campaign events with Liz Cheney, that got turned off about it. And
It
if you
didn't
go
speak to them.
if you go to the darkest blue parts of the country, they said, well, I'm not excited about Kamala, but I'm going to show up and vote just to get Trump out. It's like, well, if that's that person's attitude, what are their friends doing? Their friends probably aren't showing up, and that's exactly what happened. I mean, even if she had gotten half, 30% of that 7 million, she would have won.
Yeah.
Yeah. Democrats win when more people show up to vote. And
It's all about turnout. It's all about turnout.
This cycle, so yeah.
And that was what was most frustrating. I would encourage you, just for your own, like, just learning, because you can't learn enough in this business, and learning from failure, is that Pod Save America interview with those consultants, because they are all data. There are no instincts. There's no creativity, even though that is our advantage on the left. And because there's no creativity, there's no decisiveness. And then that means that this person's not a leader. They don't want just a politician. They want a leader, right? Like to what you guys are saying, like Kamala came across as indecisive and flaky and trying to make everybody happy instead of taking a stand.
Right.
Unapologetically, as you said.
Yeah. Ultimately, she did try to like just please too many people at once, and it ended up like just costing her the election. Like it was like trying to juggle too many things at once in a short time span and whatnot. One of the reasons.
Do you guys think whether the word is earn or deserve, do you think she earned the right to run for president? Or
Sure.
to be in that
No.
position?
Well,
No,
okay.
it was handed to her.
It was-
No, it was. Oh, good. We disagreed. This is fun. Yeah, no, this doesn't happen a lot. Yeah, no, she was handed. She was handed that nomination. She didn't earn it. No.
Yeah, well, I mean, post campaign, it kind of shows that like, okay, so she at first when Biden actually finally made the decision to drop out and hand over the reins to Kamala Harris, I was just like, oh my God, the Democrats actually did something bold. They did something that people actually wanted. This is insane, and of course, that is where most of the excitement for me at least came from and whatnot. And it's like, okay, like, can Kamala Harris get off the ground running? What really excited me was how incredibly she did in that debate during against Trump. I thought she stomped his ass.
Well, and prior to that, she picked Tim Walz, which got us excited.
Yeah,
because
and that
Tim
was
Walz
another thing.
The best pick that she
Excellent.
could have made. Yeah.
Excellent, wonderful governor, incredible progressive, very successful. But like ultimately, it just amounted to nothing for the reasons that we've talked about so far in this podcast. She didn't reach out to progressives. She didn't actually have a message.
She
The
kept
economy,
the Biden team
the
in
economy.
place, too. She didn't get any of her own people in. And by the way, there's a financial reason why she had to be the nominee.
Of
All
course.
the money that Biden had raised up until that point, and it was hundreds of millions of dollars,
Yeah.
only Kamala could use that money.
Yeah.
Because she
So
was
it-
on the ticket. So they couldn't do
couldn't have
what
been
I
available.
wanted, was a historic, sensational, prime time, open convention at the DNC. Let's make history.
Yeah.
I mean, not to be a chauvinist about it, but like,
Yeah.
I want someone with some fucking balls who like you said, unapologetic. And I don't think I've been around women in my generation who use that colloquialism themselves. Like they say man up. Like they don't mean it condescendingly or like in a sexist way. They just mean compete. Learn how to compete.
Yeah,
And we talk a lot about what is like the left need. What is for you to attract people like you guys, we need to separate from the followers and the leaders, and the leaders need to be competitors. Because right now we got a lot of people who don't know how to compete. I mean, do you think of the Democratic Party as a party of winners?
Not
Rating
right
wise?
now. Not right
Ever?
now.
Back when Obama was president, maybe?
2008, right? That was a historic year. 2009.
Of
Yeah,
course.
but see, there you go.
Yeah.
So do you know? So Barack Obama's greatest political accomplishment is not winning the presidency twice. It is beating the Hillary Clinton DNC machine in the primary. That was
Yes.
a huge accomplishment. No matter who
Gigantic.
came out of that Democratic primary, they were going to win the presidency because W was so goddamn bad. W had the worst approval rating of any exiting president since Nixon. And I would encourage you, fun little research thing, go check out the popularity numbers on presidents, and you can watch, like Eisenhower had 90% or whatever at some point, and other than 9/11, the gaps go closer and closer together. So more and more kind of us versus them of what you're talking about. So I guess the reason why I wanted to have you guys on this, and I want to get you, we've been talking a lot, so I want you guys to talk, but I want to know what you think of millennials, and just be really honest, because I know that you come in different shapes, colors, and sizes. I mean, the joke on us, and you tell me about the younger, maybe this is for younger millennials, but the stereotype was like we're on our phones all the time, that we're not working, we expect to get promoted without putting in the work. Everybody wants to be famous, and now I think the millennials have really matured into the kind of cognizant professional class, because based on voting trends, the millennials are the only ones trending to the left, if I'm not mistaken. Isn't that right, Stapat?
For
Confirm
the
that?
most, yeah, like by far, probably like the
And
most
black women too.
left-wing.
Black women, of course.
Yeah, the most left wing voting bloc. That's for sure.
So, what do you guys think of the millennials? I mean, are we good listeners? Are we assholes? Are we selfish, entitled? Like I hate Jake Paul. Is that a problem? Yeah.
Well, I think you asked me. We were on a call, like I think a week ago.
Yeah, right before Thanksgiving. Yeah.
The first word that comes to mind is broke. To be honest with you, that's what I think
Yeah.
of when I think of millennials, because I think they were handed tough cards. Right, the housing market crisis happened right after you guys graduated college, so it was hard to
Yep.
find jobs. And then you had the pandemic hit when at your professional peak, sort of, you could say, for a lot of millennials. So I think it's been a tough situation for millennials, but I don't have any negative, perceptions of them, to be honest with you. I think they're good people. They want good things for the country. I don't think they're deterrent to the country. I think actually millennials need to step up.
There you go. That's what
Yeah.
I'm fucking talking about. All right, so because here's my pitch. Here's when I mean, obviously you guys can tell. Like I'm 40 years old. I have I'm not changing, guys. Like I've come from this political. I mean, I would encourage you to watch some of my early videos. Like I've traveled the political spectrum. I was never KKK right, but the evangelical cousins. That's where I started, and I've come all the way. I'm not a communist, but it's for me. I don't have all the answers to what the policy should be, but I know what the political gamesmanship needs to look like.
Yeah.
And right now, I'm not so worried about MAGA because I know what MAGA is by now, and you guys are formulating your own opinions about that, and whatever. Like I just keep exploring, can't explore enough. But my focus is in DNC leadership, because this was an institutional failure, and thus the institution needs to be reformed from within. And I not only want to get baby boomer liberals out of leadership at the DNC, but I want to leapfrog Gen Xers, because I think Gen Xers are really capitalist. Why? Because a lot of them got in on the tech boom.
Yes.
And they have nice, sexy portfolios to think about right now.
Yeah, late 90s.
Yeah. Can I just say one more thing about
course.
Joe
Of course, say as much as you want.
going on a tangent, but I think the man, he should have dropped out a year and a half ago. I don't think he should have
Yeah.
run at all. I think that would have solved a lot of problems. He would have
Yeah.
left out, he wouldn't have been disgraced into quitting by Nancy Pelosi, right? Which is what
So
happened essentially.
in this presidential video, man, you're going to realize like he was pretty upfront about how the Democratic Party is here to service Joe Biden. Democratic Party is to make Joe Biden rich and famous and relevant and eventually president. That's what his vision of the purpose of the DNC was. I mean, this is the thing with the acting, right? Like, you got to get past the performance of these people and realize that they're cogs in a system, most of them. And even AOC has done some disappointing things. Bernie's done some disappointing things. I wish he had not kept saying, Joe's a friend of mine all the time. Like, Bernie, it's time to kind of put your dukes up and assert yourself here, bud. That's what people like about you. And he was too nice all the time. And that's another lesson that we've learned. Go ahead, Steph.
Ultimately, a lot of this really does come down to Joe Biden. And like, I'm reminded of that clip from 2008 on the debate stage when Mike Gravel told Joe Biden to his face, "You have a certain arrogance about you," and that ended up ringing true down to the last minute. He dropped out way too late. It all came down to him. He even said on the campaign trail in 2020 that he would be a one-term president and pave the way for a younger generation and whatnot.
Yeah.
That ended up like he didn't even commit to that until it was too late, until he caught COVID almost a month after the debate. And that left Kamala Harris very little time to campaign. They didn't allow an actual primary to take place. The primary that did take place was Dean Phillips. Like, he got like some coverage, but he was just mocked. Marianne Williamson didn't get any coverage except for on TikTok. Like she got some because she's actually a great progressive and whatnot, and popular with the young people. Cenk Uygur, of course, didn't get any coverage. It really did all come down to Joe Biden's arrogance.
Yeah.
He didn't drop out when he needed to, and to touch on. Basically our history. One of the things that has driven me. Of course, I've been doing this for a long time. I've had this channel for like maybe 5 years now, but I've been following politics for the better part of 10 years now, almost. It's easy to get jaded because you see the same mistakes being played out again and again and again by the party that you are most ideologically aligned with, the Democratic Party, and it's just endlessly frustrating to see. Imagine being Dieter; he's like 11 years old, older than I am. And he's just been seeing it all this time. Obama not delivering when he had.
Well, I thought they were losers up until 2004, dude. Until 2004, I was on team. I was on team GOP.
Yeah, but when Obama had the supermajority, when he first took office, before the midterms wiped that clean, he didn't do anything with it.
Well, he did the ACA. He did. I mean, he did the ACA, and
like that was during. Did he do that during his first 2 years?
Yeah.
That was it.
That was
okay.
Yeah.
I thought he did
that was the big.
later.
See, the big problem. So the ACA, I can understand why he wouldn't have been able to do Medicare for all. But he could have done a public option, and he let Joe Lieberman fuck that up. I don't know if you guys know that story. But Joe Lieberman was in the pocket of big pharma, big healthcare, and sabotaged that. So I guess
something similar to that, I guess you could say the past 4 years under Biden would be a Joe Manchin or a Kyrsten Sinema who heavily, because of their backing.
Well, what do you guys think of boomers? I want to know what they think of boomers now.
Well, yeah.
Of baby boomers?
Yes.
I don't know.
Baby boomer. You can get specific with it. Baby boomer conservatives, baby boomer liberals, baby boomer hippies, baby boomer vets. Whatever.
They're on the back burner now. I think they're on the back burner, and I mean, obviously, they're on their way out. I think the more important.
Not fast enough, man.
Well, no, but that's. See, I think this is also one thing that happens a lot in life is just. I mean, I'm 24. What do I know, right? But we see
a lot more than most 24-year-olds.
Yeah, right. Well, hopefully.
Yes.
We see life in this condensed state, right? And we're like, okay, it needs to be faster, needs to be faster, needs to be faster. But then, when you're thinking in history, right? When you're learning history and they're telling you, oh, this war was from, whatever, right? 1842 to 1846. And you're like, I don't know if you guys resonate with this, but you're like, that's not that long. Because then you think about, Genghis Khan, for example, and it's like reigns for 60 years or 80 years or something. But that's what happens a lot, I think. We condense time, and it's like we need to
Yeah.
be quicker, right? But
Of-
I think what's happening right now is we're kind of drawing back to what your question was. I think it was important. What do we think of millennials, right? And I think millennials are in this. They're in the awkward stage. They're like the awkward stage of a transition in America and in the modern era, I think. And
mhm.
in everything is time needs to happen. People need to realize certain things in order to move forward. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that's where I think Gen Z is kind of on that forward movement right now of, we see what's happened and we don't have to resonate with the past in order to make a difference.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing to think about. It's like it puts things in perspective for me because I remember when smartphones didn't even exist. I remember when like flat screen TVs weren't even really
Yeah.
abundant, like the
Well, it's
norm.
dial-up internet when you used to have to trade online. So
Yeah.
used to have to go into chat rooms
Hmm.
and trade for porn back in like dial-up
Right.
internet days
So
in the 90s.
so
Really?
yeah, fucking
Like
Jesus.
hunting and gathering back in the old days.
So my thing is like
So
it's
embarrassing.
like when it comes to Gen Z, the up and coming generation and whatnot, they basically have all the tools at their disposal, and these tools, so to speak, have been around since they were young kids, and so it's like I'm concerned that I'm concerned how a lot of Gen Z sees this and just see the opportunities that are given, seeing the life that they're born into, seeing the society, seeing the technology at their disposal, and how they utilize it. Basically, I live with I have three roommates. One of them is my brother, and they're all Gen Z. They're in their early 20s and whatnot, and like I'm concerned that like are they just gonna just rot away watching TikTok compilations all day, or like actually do something and actually learn about investing or getting involved in community building and shit like that? And
Do
so
you
it's like,
think, just for millennials or Gen X, do you think that majority of them were trying to step up and learn and do something? Or do you
oh,
think,
of course, I think with every generation that passes,
yeah,
I think there's this inherent drive to be in a better position than where your parents were. Basically just be more successful, be more educated, be more informed, and be more involved. I think that's inherent with every generation, and that's also thanks to the advent of just ever more expanding technology as well.
Right, and that's why I have hope, Stat Pat, and that's why this relationship is so important to me, is because millennials can do it. We can become the greatest generation in America since the greatest generation because we need to be. We need to be if we're going to survive as a nation. And this is where I'm just going to be really honest with you guys and sound probably like an alarmist, but it's only because, like Stat Pat said, I've been paying attention to politics since I was 7 years old, which was 1991. No, it was actually earlier than that. I remember the Berlin Wall falling in 1989.
I forget how old he is, guys.
We need
memory.
we need generational change. We need big change. We all get to that point, right? We all get to the point of like, we need big change. We even in your interview, the conservative said, conservative admitted that most Trumplicans don't know what the answer is. They want change too. They just don't want the kind of change that the Democrats are at least seemingly to be offered, right? So what gives me hope, Stat Pat, for Gen Z, even though the numbers were a little disconcerting about this election, but again, turnout. So who knows what the reality actually is?
Yeah, they excite the voters.
they have the tools. They are fluent in information technology, and they can discover truth if they really want it. They can
Yes.
go to
If they want
Reddit
it.
poster boards. They can go to multiple sources of information to confirm that something's true. These guys know without any of our help that Israel is waging genocide on in Gaza.
Yeah, because the mainstream media is not fucking telling anybody that.
Right.
That's for damn
So
sure.
So what I'm yearning to do is to find a non-condescending way to reach out to Gen Z and say, "Hey guys, I know you don't think it's that bad yet, or whatever. We still have hope. I'm telling you, we need revolution, a non-violent sociocultural revolution akin to civil rights. Okay, so we
Right.
need that scale of activism."
Yes.
And it needs to be led by people who hate conservative capitalism, which is what we're living in. This is not a regulated, healthy, fair, free market like a lot of other capitalist societies in the world. We
It's
are
fucking worse.
lopsided. It's not fair. It's not equal. It has no interest in equality. So I'm trying to find a way, and
Respectfully to that point.
oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
To rally the two. All I was going to say, let me just conclude it, is
Okay.
with millennials plus Gen Z,
Yeah.
millennials plus Gen Z can overcome the negative legacy of the baby boomers, who have, by the way, been in power since 1992 and are still in power. But go ahead.
Longer than now.
Yeah.
We've talked about this point of like capitalists, and like what you're saying it's not fair, essentially, right? And
Conservative capitalism.
conservative capitalism, but you're saying the current environment.
The current capitalist system that we live in is
Yeah.
not even close to fair and hasn't been fair for a really long time.
Yeah.
Totally hear you. I think a lot of people think this. Just in my personal experience and anecdote, I'm like a bare but like I started from $0 in entrepreneurship, and now I have a 6-figure liquidation business, and I don't see it was unfair in my opinion. Just in living in LA, even with just so much going on here and there,
A lot more opportunity.
what's going on in politics, I feel like the opportunity for me, as when I was 21 starting this, it was, I mean, as long as you want, my point is, as long as you want it, I think it's there for you. I don't think
Of course.
you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Obviously it's not going to be handouts. I don't believe in handouts. I believe everybody has to work their ass off in order to get where they want in life. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because I don't.
The knowledge is definitely there, and like the fact that you actually had the means at your disposal to actually pursue it, and like you had this drive
And the
Few
balls,
people-
yeah, and the
yeah,
drive,
few
man.
people have that.
Like exactly.
Like,
Like
yeah,
not
few-
everybody's a winner. Like
Yeah.
society's got to take care of the losers too.
You guys
and
are winners.
obviously. I mean, obviously, you grabbed life by the balls and said, "I'm going to do what I want." For me,
Exactly.
I just never got into the like I worked in Hollywood, I still do, but like it's all too trivial now. I've got to do politics. It's just the stakes are so much higher, and it's just that's where my value is and stuff. But the money never really mattered to me. I was in corporate America right out of college at a management consulting firm. The golden road to Harvard Business School was right there in front of me if I wanted it, and I was like, this is just materialism.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you're doing it because you like to compete, you like to win, you like to solve problems, and you like to solve other people's problems, like liquidation business. I have a general idea for what you do, and you built up relationships and a customer base and have produced yourself. You're the American dream, and you're not even 25. And
Yeah.
but I'm telling you that like that's really hard for someone who's born into a family of 10 in the middle of Appalachia. And who's not going to get a chance to? I don't know. It doesn't sound like you needed a college education to do it, but you did come from a source of an area of economic growth, and it sounds like maybe you weren't terribly poor growing up. I mean, it's not. I don't know.
I mean, total middle class family, right?
Yeah.
Total middle class family.
Right.
I used to
Yeah,
think
yeah,
my
yeah.
parents. I used to think my parents were poor. I have done the math and be like, you weren't that. You weren't lower class. You were middle class. God damn it! You made it out to be like you were fucking poor. You weren't poor. Anyway.
Yeah. You guys are definitely fortunate to be living in one of like I mean, it's fucking Los Angeles. It's like
Yeah.
it's literally one of the biggest metropolitan areas in the world, and like just opportunity is abundant.
It's also
like,
so expensive, though, dude.
That's my
That's
that
the
was
thing,
the other
yeah.
point. Yeah.
it's the
Opportunities
thing,
here, but also cost is here, right? So
yeah, and that's
it's
and
yeah.
that's the thing. Like honestly, like I'm hoping like it's like 'cause I work 2 jobs. I'm working class. I live a little south of Sacramento, like maybe like 45 minutes south of Sacramento and whatnot. And I make decent money between both jobs and whatnot. But like the area I'm in, it's like it's not very well populated, especially like in comparison to LA and whatnot. So like the thing for like my area and whatnot, and my business, the businesses that I do and whatnot, there's not much room for upward mobility, and even if I wanted to like go above and beyond, like the cost to go like just to go up front with it is it would be very very difficult. Like I put myself in a hole that would take me a very long time to get out of, for instance and whatnot.
Mhm.
It's also why I'm so driven to just politics and whatnot, because it's obviously an outlet for all of us, and we want to see these conditions improve. Like the cost of living is absolutely insane, but that's really California for you. Um,
Dude, student
it's just
loan
like,
debt, Medicare for all, and UBI. I mean,
yeah. I
would
mean,
you guys vote
there's a
for a
reason.
Democratic Party that was interested in those ideas? You talked about ideas at the beginning. I mean, those
Yeah,
sound like
like
pretty amazing ideas to me. What happened to those in this campaign?
Right.
there's a reason why so many people are driven towards like fundamental change and whatnot. It's like you guys mentioned, like like in all the exit polls showed, the number one issue, it wasn't abortion, it wasn't even immigration, it was the economy, apart from democracy, obviously, but that means different things to different people. It's always the economy. If people don't
The
feel like
economy's
they're
stupid, as they say.
yes, James,
James
yes, we
Carville
That's
said.
James Carville.
I'm a
James
big fan of
Yeah,
Carville.
James Carville, but he's right about this.
No,
It's
no,
the
of course, we actually covered him recently and whatnot, and like we're kind of like, kind of astounded that he came around thinking like, maybe
yeah,
Bernie
but he
Sanders
wasn't loud
actually has
enough
a point.
though. He
No, of
wasn't
course,
loud enough. He
of
hasn't been
course,
loud enough.
but yeah,
It's gonna be a minute. It's gonna be a few minutes before this fucking party gets its shit
no,
together.
of course, and it's like, but and to circle back on the economy under Biden and whatnot, Kirsten Sinema, Joe Manchin, they watered down the most progressive, like transformational bills that the Biden administration was pushing. Build Back Better had a lot of provisions in it that would have been it had paid family leave, it had paid sick leave and whatnot. It would have had I think even it even included daycare and an increase to the child tax credit and whatnot, and it was watered down by a couple of conservative Democrats who are sellouts to big money. It's and so like that shit's like really 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 frustrating, obviously, but like because. I think it's because of those two. Those two don't get fucking bullied enough. Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema,
No.
because of those like a lot of provisions was left out of those bigger uh, legislative bills and whatnot. I think that's why they lost this time. I think that's why Trump won is because Americans didn't see much
Yep.
economic results from those bills being passed in the earlier part of Joe Biden's campaign. It's even if Donald Trump is obviously not a not good for the economy, and his plans would be like fucking devastating. We're in for a rough 4 years, maybe more. Even so, they just wanted change, and even if they don't understand what that change is or its implications, they'll punish the Democrats anyway because they don't see the fruits of what they're legislatively pushing through.
What do you guys think are going to be the big priorities or that we're going to see right away? I mean, the thing that I'm looking for is mass deportations and the tariffs. Obviously, the tariffs we'll see exactly what happens with those at our grocery stores and shit. But the mass deportations, do you think those will have kind of a disturbing effect on the American public? Do you think the American public will find discomfort in seeing that?
What do you guys think Trump will do?
Yeah, what do you think Trump will do, and what are you worried about? What are you maybe excited about that he might do?
I will say I'm looking forward to the Department of Government Efficiency, the Doge department. Like it sounds ridiculous, but I do think like there's a lot of government inefficiency that stems from corporate greed because they
Yes.
don't respect taxpayer money. I don't
Nope.
think they do
No,
generally.
they don't.
So
That's right.
I'm glad at least they're attempting to make the government more efficient. So that's what I'm looking forward to. In terms of deportations, um, I, I don't know what's actually going to happen. If you take Trump for his word, that means millions of people will be deported more than
Yes.
Obama. So Obama was a deporter in chief, right? They deported
Yep.
more people than any other president. So if Trump wants to surpass that, I think it will affect people. But let's see. Like how much of that he's actually able to do, because I don't know if you guys saw, Gavin Newsom is preparing to go to
Oh
Yeah.
God,
to fight
yeah,
legally, and they're actually making a legal fund of $35 million using taxpayer money in California to fight Trump on the legal front. So we'll see what happens. But I mean, with Trump, you never know. You never know. He might
you
wake up
don't.
one day deciding to be a Democrat, and I don't know. Like, it's possible, but
Oh man, yeah. So get to know a guy. Get to know a guy named Stephen Miller, and
oh, he's
you'll.
Ooh,
Yeah, so he's the guy, man. It's
yeah,
the two Steves. It's if you want to know anybody in Trump's orbit that explains everything, the real agenda, it is Steve Bannon and Stephen Miller. They are xenophobic,
yeah,
racist, white trash gangsters.
yeah.
And trust me, dude. These, yeah,
went to
I'm
Harvard,
psyched. I'm psyched to know you guys because
What's that?
these, yeah, oh yeah. A lot of Harvard sociopaths. So did DeSantis.
Yeah,
Yeah, dude, dude, Harvard could take a hike. Yo, dude, you talk to like people who went to the other ones that are
Harvard
just
or
as good. Like
Yale.
you talk to people who went to Stanford, Yale, Princeton, all these other very equally legit places of academia. They're all like the Harvard people are douchebags. They think they're better than everybody. Stanford, like in terms of just like creme de la creme and academic brands, I'll take Stanford over anybody any day of the week, unless you're talking film schools, in which I'll take UCLA.
I saw
Whoa!
Germany.
You beat UCLA over USC? No.
Well, that's because I went to UCLA, so
Okay,
that's why.
gotcha.
You went to
I gotta hate you now, man.
It's not a real rivalry. It's not a real rivalry.
Yeah, really not. I mean, I pretended that it is, but you're right. Yeah.
No, it's all love on the West Coast, man. And that's what I want to help California. You know, we're called the Left Coast Live, and I want California to assert its political power. And you know, we'll see what Newsom does, because you know, Newsom's coming, man. You know, the DNC is going to try and shove Newsom down our throats in 4 years.
Yeah.
You know, he's next. It's either him, Wes Moore, or Gretchen Whitmer. So I don't know if you know who those people are, but
Or Ben Shapiro. I think he might run.
Ben Shapiro.
Not Ben Shapiro. Sorry,
Oh,
Josh.
Oh, the
Shapiro.
guy,
Oh,
Josh
yeah,
Shapiro.
that guy.
Not Ben
No
Shapiro.
way. No
Yeah.
way.
He's the governor of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, he looks like a real winner. He looks like
Yeah.
a real winner,
He
dude.
was gonna pick him to be his VP, right? But
Yeah, and then he like fumbled it like hardcore because he kind of came off as very, very snobby.
A Zionist.
I guess you could say. Yeah,
He was also a Zionist.
yeah, of course, and of course there's that aspect too. But he to put it in like I guess Gen Z terms, he gave the Kamala campaign the ick.
The ick.
Yeah, yeah.
I like
Yeah,
that.
hopefully it's not him. Like honestly, if it's anybody, it should be someone who we've talked about this before. Whoever runs for the head of the Democratic ticket needs to be asked the following question: what would you deliver for the American people that also isn't tied to what your donors want?
Hmm.
Like that's the biggest thing, because like I mentioned before, it's like that liberal that you guys had in that debate. The overwhelming majority of the time, when it comes to Congress passing legislation and whatnot, it benefits the corporations over the people. The people rarely get what they want, and when the people do get what they want, or if it's something that does help the ordinary American citizen, it's something that that corporations also want. So, and what we've also talked about before is the two parties, Democrats and Republicans, their middle ground is only to serve capital, their donors, and the capital class and whatnot, and keep on expanding the Department of Defense. Like that's the only like bipartisan consensus that they, of course, and Israel as well. That's the only like bipartisan shit that you'll actually get them
Iron Dome,
unified on.
yeah.
What's that?
That's the Israel's Iron Dome. Like they want to provide as much security as possible.
No. Of
Yeah, you
course.
know what I mean.
Yeah.
Do you know what the real solution is to Israel Hamas? You know what a real leader would do? Like if Bernie had been in charge, he'd call up. He like would have some sort of communication with the entire Israeli government, and say, "You have, I don't know, 100 hours to hand over Netanyahu, and he will stand trial for war crimes. And if that doesn't happen in 100 hours, then we're cutting off weapon sales for 100 years." and then
Something ridiculous.
Israel does. It doesn't matter because they're going to comply.
Of course.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. Like,
It's just
you
a
kind of
bargaining
need,
chip.
whether we like it or not. Like, America is the big bad bully in geopolitics, and sometimes you got to use that big stick, especially when it's something as obstinate and entitled as Benny Netanyahu. How much more time do we have with you guys? Do you guys need to get going soon?
I do personally, yes. Yeah.
How much?
Okay,
how much
yeah,
time? We got 10 minutes, or
Yeah, we can do 5-10 minutes. Yeah.
Okay.
all right.
cool.
So,
Awesome.
did you have anything else, Stat Pat, or did you? Because I wanted to make sure we got a couple with minutes with them after the stream.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, nothing else really comes to mind. I'm just glad this South Korea thing was kind of funny recently.
yeah.
Like,
All right. So
like,
this is the video. This is the one part of the video I want you guys to see. All right.
Sure.
It's only 4 minutes long.
The presidents who recognized
Presidential
the
tier.
essential powerlessness of the office as time moved on,
very-
and dealt with that not by raging against it or ignoring it, but by willing themselves into
Worshipping
being
soulless neoliberal huts.
a instrument, a conscious instrument of the system, like merge with the machine of their own volition. And these are Martin Van Buren, the little magician, old Kinderhook himself, but at a low level because we're dealing with much more degree of freedom there to do political activity. So therefore, a machine that can do much less evil than the ones we have now. What we have are George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, and Barfsack O'Crumbo himself, Barack Obama. And these are people who said, "I have looked into the eye of Sauron, and it sounds great. Let's do it."
And I think what's notable about that list is that those are the three manifestations of what I guess we would call old school liberalism into the 21st century. Obviously,
God.
H.W. was a Republican, but he was the last vestige of the mid-century liberalist Republican way as it was being subsumed into modern, just glass-chewing conservatism.
And he
The Bushes are one of the great WASP families, just so you know.
was willing to go along for the ride on everything, at every level, in order to preserve his position, which is that's the only way that you can consciously seek power now. So what we have had since the 70s has been an alteration between these figures of like self-willed evil
God.
and these this collection of hollowed out dummies who really only differ in their degree of personal narcissism.
You'll have to send me this.
Reagan was a mascot in a way Trump isn't, because he really was happy to find the mark, step on it, and read the lines and convince himself that was good. Donald Trump had an independent agenda as president, but it was just his own personal brand.
Yeah.
And that is different than a mascot. You don't want your mascot doing that. That's a bad mascot. But he is achieving power the only other way you can in this context, if you're not willfully an instrument of capital in some way, is to be some kind of damaged narcissist who has been hollowed out of anything else by one process or another, like Joe Biden and like George W. Bush. Where they can tell themselves they're doing good, but it's because their brains, in many fundamental ways, are not really picking up all the frequencies.
Oh my God, that's
And in Donald's case,
true. I
any
mean,
frequency
oh my
that might be
God.
picked up is just drowned out by his own voice.
But the internal scream of Donald Trump.
They're just out there. Like Joe Biden is the Democratic Party, petrified into a skeleton. But
God,
just as
damn it, dude.
just as an instrument of ambition, the personal ambition of Joe Biden, which has always been, since he was a child, what he saw the Democratic Party as a way for Joe Biden to be president. He was actually always very forward about that.
I mean,
really.
there's a reason why
with
he
people
ran for
around him,
president
that
3 times
he was-
and lost.
He saw politics as a way to get paid and get renowned and get power and get social advancement with the abilities he had. which were basically a really good set of teeth.
All right.
Jesus.
All right. I had to share
It's
that.
a
I had
little
to
bit
make
of
sure
fun.
you guys saw that because you know, man, if you don't agree with that, you'll get there someday.
It's fun. Yeah. Wow.
It's bad, fellas. It's bad. But listen, I really want to appreciate you guys making the time. Please, the floor is yours for any final comments, and then we'll wrap it up. And then I want to tell you about a project that I'm working on. Okay.
Well, thank you for having us on.
Yeah.
And
Of
we
course.
appreciate you. And we're looking forward to more of these conversations. You can look at our work on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube at the Gen Z Speaks podcast.
Yeah, no, I'll definitely make sure to follow you guys. I got an Instagram. Hell yeah.
There we go. Last word. I think regardless of who's president, whether you agree with them or not, you should hope for the best for the country. Just all the
I agree.
viewers be out there.
Yeah,
Agreed.
yeah. I know Trump very well. I mean, because we both kind of come from like kind of right leaning backgrounds and whatnot, but it was the advent of Trump in his first term that made me realize like, oh, this guy's kind of fucking stupid, and I slowly like became a progressive and whatnot. But I regardless, I agree. Like, I do hope that the next 4 years aren't as bad as I expect it to be. That's for sure.
Agreed. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. All right. Well, for the Gen Z Speaks podcast, guys, as Matt and Ibrahim, as well as Stat Pat Stateless Patriot, I am your host, Dieter McBusiness, reminding you that you don't get change in America by asking nicely.
Everybody have a good night.
See you Thursday.